Welcome everybody to another Bangers and Classics podcast. That's with me, David Malloy, and him, James Ruppert. What have you been up to this week, James?
James? I've been called a lot of things. I haven't been called James. Well, names I get called aren't usually as nice as James. Right. So I'll let you off with that one.
Okay.
Yes, what have I been up to? Not a lot, really. No. Just writing a new book, and I've got an article to write for somebody else. Just things like that. So just keeping my head down, as it were. How are you?
No, it's all going swimmingly here, David. The only thing at the moment is I believe the fuel pump after 38 years seems to have given up on the lorry, so that doesn't want to go anywhere. You can hand pump it, but that doesn't seem to be working, and I don't know why, because you pump the thing it's supposed to. So I don't know. So I'll have to spend a bit more time doing it. I wonder whether I spend £5 on a rebuild kit or try and get it to the local garage so they can have the bother of doing it. So I have those issues going on in my garage at the moment. That's the only thing.
You've got lots of other vehicles, James.
I do have some, yeah, but actually it's blocking a few in because it won't move. I have pushed it in the past, and actually fairly recently I had to push it because it wouldn't start on an incline, which is when I thought, I bet the fuel pump's not great. But I do need to move it out of the way so that I can exercise some other vehicles.
All right. Well, we'd fun and games with the Jeep. Because I told you before, wanting to get a new clutch, new dual mass flywheel to sort out a problem, which did nothing to sort the problem out. In fact, it's worse than ever. So the garage they couldn't get it to replicate what it was doing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of bizarre, but there we go. So I took it out on Sunday, and my wife videoed what I was doing, because basically, when it's cold, it's absolutely fine. Dry, sweet as a nut. When it gets hot, strange things happen. And the first thing you notice is when you lift your foot off the throttle, the revs don't drop. The revs initially stay the same for about 5 or 6 seconds, then they drop. When it gets hotter, the revs start to increase. It's actually, you get uncommanded acceleration. And it gets worse than that the longer you leave it. So we took it out on some very, very quiet roads to get it properly hot to see what it would do, and so we could video it, to provide some evidence. Yeah. And it's a bizarre problem. We'll get to the bottom of it though. But it's not really being used for obvious reasons, and it's another reason why I'm not doing much just now, because we've only got one car available, and in case we need it for something, I don't want to go too far afield while we're waiting for the Jeep to get back on its wheels, as it were. Anyway, news this week, James.
Yes,
we had a contest last week, didn't we? A challenge.
I don't know, Dave. I'm not at all sure. It may be related to the opening of this podcast, where possibly I confused myself with you. I don't know.
Yes, well, we had a challenge last week.
Yeah.
And the challenge was to find the cheapest car that we could. And that was a challenge given to us by Kenny, who is obviously one of the great friends of the podcast. And his input is always very much appreciated. So if you're listening, Kenny, thanks for all of that. Kenny got to determine who won the contest. My bribe must have got to him first, or it must have been just a little bit bigger than yours, because Kenny says I won it. So Yabu sucks to you, Mr. Ruppert.
Well, I hope Kenny pays you that huge prize that he promised. I think it was very generous of him to promise you that big prize. I don't know. Maybe it's all gone to his head. All this fame and fortune that he now has via this podcast. But Kenny is an expert, and unfortunately, I have to defer to his expert opinion, because he does actually know about cars. He can fix your car, basically. So that puts him ahead of us.
Is he any good with Jeeps?
I don't think he does Jeeps. He's had such terrible experiences with them. He said never again.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He did describe you as a master at work.
Well, that's nice of him to say that. I hope that was the word that he used, but there you go.
Yes, it was. Yeah, definitely. So moving on to more sort of general news.
Well done, David, by the way.
Oh, yeah. oh, shucks, etc. Yeah. No, I think you should have won that. I had no confidence that I would win it. But yeah, I won't let it go to my head. I won't spend the 2p an offer for the prize all in the one shop, as they say.
Yeah. I
hear there's some news from the virtual publishing industry, James, you might want to pass on.
Well, is that really? Well, I think the announcement this week, and I don't know if anybody cares really, that Drive Tribe doesn't exist anymore. Will certainly in the next week or two won't exist anymore. So if you've got any content there, you've got to hurry over and take it off, or I don't know what happens to it. But it seems very, very strange sort of set of circumstances. I remember when it launched, I remember talking to some people and saying, "Oh, have you heard about this drive track?" A lot of people hadn't heard of it and didn't know it. And it was just a very large sort of, I suppose, a cumbersome platform that obviously didn't reach the number of people it was supposed to reach or do what it was supposed to do. But an awful lot of money was expended. I mean, if they gave half of that to, the Bangers and Classics podcast, I mean, we'd know what to do with it. But
yeah, absolutely. Leg it, basically.
We would do, wouldn't we? But
yeah.
But I think, I mean, unless any of our listeners tell us otherwise, I don't think its demise will make very much difference to the average car enthusiast, really.
No, I remember we talked about it back when it started. You and I had a chat on Twitter about it some years ago, and there was some concern among certain publishing houses, shall we say, that this was the way forward. They'd stolen a march on the industry.
Yeah.
And I wasn't convinced at the time. I don't think you were either.
No.
The problem I had with it, because I actually signed up to have a tribe, and I never did anything with it, because you can do a lot of work on it, you can submit stuff, put it forward, put it up there, and you get rewarded with, nothing. It's a big problem for freelancers, especially when you're starting, as you know, James, that people will pay you in exposure.
That's right.
Yeah, great. That's going to really go down well at supermarket. Well, I actually can't give you the 50 quid for this week's shopping, but I have got a ton of exposure in my back pocket. Would you like that instead?
Yeah.
Don't think that's going to work. Anyway, Drive Tribe has gone. I never really bothered much looking at it, so I can't say I'm going to miss it. Maybe someday will. And the only sad thing will be is the people have lost their jobs.
Yes, that's right.
That's the only sad thing I can see about it. I express my sympathy for them, but the rest of it, not really bothered about.
No.
Anyway, car spots, James. Have we seen anything?
I forgot to mention one, actually, which was New Year's Day, and it was actually an E-Type, which was quite interesting to see. It was a Mark 1, it was a coupe, and it is how small they are. It was a very, very, very well restored one. And I saw it a few times. I was in a place where it was very, very difficult to park. So you could accuse this person of driving up and down saying, "Look at me in my E-Type." But I think he was genuinely looking for somewhere to park it. But it is just how small they are. It's sort of quite incredible, really. You always think they are like some big magnificent beast of a car, but it isn't compared to today's things. It's sort of quite light and delicate, really, and and if anything, it looks a tiny bit puny. But it was, but again, it is one of those things. It's so nice to see something like that driving around, which is extremely good. So I saw one of those. So that was very expensive. And I wrote down, what else did I see? Actually, talking about, because I do like to do a banger as well, Toyota RAV4, the Mark 1 version of that. And that was in a car park, and that was a P-plater, so it was quite an early one. And that is just a remarkably good-looking little car, really, which I don't think is to blame for all the SUV stuff, but it was certainly like a lifestyle vehicle. But again, compared to what you see today, it's sort of quite a small and delicate and quite a nice looking little thing, really. So
I mean, the RAV4 originally was regarded as a sort of cross between the 4x4 and a hot hatch, if I remember back in the day when it first came out.
Yeah,
it was the 4x4 that was made for enthusiastic drivers. That's what they said. I never actually drove one back in the period and couldn't really comment on it at all. But
it is I think the RAV, doesn't that sound for something activity vehicle? I don't know, random activity vehicle, probably. But I just thought subsequently they've just sort of turned into normal cars. And oddly enough, my sister, I think, had a very recent one, and they didn't like it at all, and they sold it after a year or something.
So a mate of mine's got not the first series, I think it would be the second series. It'd be probably about 2006, 2007 one. I think he's still got it, and he likes it.
Yeah.
He really does like it. I have been in it. We went to a gig in it once, and it was pleasant enough to ride in, I'll say that much.
And that's it really for me, I think. Yeah, an E-Type and a RAV4. What about, and you, nothing at all? Or?
Well, I saw the Integrale, I've seen a couple of times, sitting at the same address. Anyway, so we've covered that, and I think on that note, we'll just take a very quick break. You're listening to Bangers and Classics, the motoring podcast with grace and wisdom. That's W.G. Grace and Norman Wisdom. Oh, so welcome back after the break. Now, James surprised me the other day, I have to say, because he told me that something I didn't know. There's no great effort involved in doing that, let's be honest. But I was shocked to find out that Viva Las Vegas wasn't just a ZZ Top song.
Oh.
Apparently it's a film starring the one and only Elvis Presley. Now, I don't know much about that chap, but I'm told he could hold a bit of a tune. But this is what's going to tell us about the film, and in particular, the cars in it.
Well, that's right. It's also got Anne Margaret in it as well. I must point that out to people. It's another reason for watching it. But it's actually a car film, David. It isn't, a schlocky waste of your time of Colonel Tom Parker making Elvis, earn a very big living for him. It's actually a car film that we can enjoy for the many sights that you actually see. And there's an awful lot of very interesting metal there. If you enjoy watching the race scenes, I won't bore people with what it's about. I mean, obviously, Elvis is a very good mechanic and driver. And it would be great if he had have gone into Formula One. That would have been fun, wouldn't it? Elvis. He probably
thank you very much.
Yeah, that's right. He could have afforded to go into Formula One, possibly buy his own seat there. But we have to make do with this film. But the film is just there are just so many car spots in it. It will make your head spin if you don't already know it. I'm sure there are some people listening to this who know the film very, very well. But it's wonderful colour. It's 1964, and you just see car after car. It also, what it brings home is how successful British roadsters were, and also European roadsters were sales figures wise, and used for racing. Obviously, most American cars were rubbish going around corners, but our little tiny ones were superb at that. And you can go to the IMDb website, which will detail the majority of the cars that are in it. But yes, you get such delights. You get Triumph TR4s, you get TR3As. They don't actually highlight, although you can see it quite quickly, quite clearly, is a Daimler SP car, which is extreme, which was actually fairly successful in America, mainly because it had a V8 engine. There's a Jaguar XK, there's Maserati 450. There is a Shelby Cobra, which is good as well. We've got you've got really weird stuff. I mean, they even highlight things like a Honda C110 scooter, which you can enjoy. Yeah, the Triumphs are good. You can also see. Well, actually, one of the most unusual ones. There is actually a Triumph Herald in it. There's a Triumph Herald Coupe, and you sort of go, "What?" Someone in America bought a Triumph Herald Coupe, but obviously they did. I suppose the big spot is a Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta, which is probably worth £1 billion now. Elvis himself drove an Elva with various engines in it. You can get lost in reading about cars that were in this film because there's an awful lot of information about the Elva. There was more than one Elva used, and there was one with Maserati engine in it. You've got Jaguar XK 120s, but just in the normal scenes. Well, there is actually a Chevrolet Corvette Stingray C2 because they did go racing. Some lovely Mercedes 300 SLs can be seen in there. It's just spot after spot. You can just see the great sort of Cadillac stuff, Series 62s and things like that. And there's Austin Healey's in there as well. But it's really a fantastic snapshot of late 50s, early 60s cars that people used to buy and race at the time. And there's a very, very good, although there are some quite compromised, back screen stuff where you can see Elvis in a car, and obviously someone is working the scenery behind them, so they're not actually there. The actual race scenes are actually pretty good; they are real, so you can see the cars on the track, and that's worth it as well. And did I mention there was Anne Margaret? Yeah, you see Anne Margaret in it, so there you go. So it's one of those films. If you ever see it come up, you just don't turn it off, because even if you don't like Elvis and you don't like singing, if you like cars, there's just spot after spot after spot. It's worth. I mean, you could probably do quite a good drinking game, I think, based on it, really. Every time you see a classic car, you have to take a swig, and I don't think you make it sort of halfway through the film at all without passing out. So that's our recommendation probably for the next time you have to celebrate something.
All right, jolly good. Of course, Elvis Presley is he's very well known in this part of the world. Tommy Steele might dispute this, but just my local airport is the only place in Britain where Elvis Presley ever set foot. He was flying back from Germany to the States from doing his military service. But anyway, that's just me digressing and talking absolute nonsense as usual. And in that vein, we've got more nonsense. We mentioned the Montego a couple of podcasts ago.
Yeah.
And we mentioned it in context of being a biscuit. Well, there was a biscuit called the Montego. I believe it was a sort of gingery biscuit. It was a chocolate-covered biscuit with a sort of slight ginger flavour, I believe.
Yeah.
I may have eaten one back in the day. I can't remember. But that got us thinking here. What other cars share their names with biscuits? And it's a surprising number. I mean, there was the Viscount, obviously the Vauxhall Viscount. Yeah. The Rover, which was obviously a Mark. But the Montego's partner, the Maestro, has got not one, but two biscuits named after it. And I believe they are still available, yeah. So, yeah, there was the Golf as well, if you wanted to go German. And if you were fans of Citroën or Vauxhall trim levels, you could buy a club. Everybody knows Lotus biscuits. And, you get Foxes made biscuits as well. So that could apply to, a small Volkswagen or an American spec Audi 80, because it was called the Fox for a time over there.
Yeah.
And one thing that just surprised me, though, was that I couldn't find a British biscuit called a Turbo. I did find one. It was a French wafer biscuit.
Yeah.
But that's a staggering omission. Why did no one call a biscuit a Turbo? Back in the 80s, everything was called turbos.
Well, it made things better, didn't it? You just call a thing a turbo, it's instantly better.
Well, that's right, yeah.
And faster.
Absolutely. It's just got that added cachet to it. And there was a biscuit called the Fiesta as well. And again, this is another staggering omission. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen a biscuit, I haven't found a biscuit called Rancho. You would have thought somebody would go down that line with a biscuit, call it Rancho.
Yeah, that's right. There was some crisps, wasn't there? The Ranchos, wasn't there? Some Rancho crisps, I seem to remember.
Possibly. There were lots and lots of crackers, and I believe they were targeted at fans of the MX-5, but we won't go there.
Well, there you go. You be careful with what you're saying there, David.
Oh, not at all. That's it. They've got enough stuff on me as it is. They don't need any more.
No.
So that's it. What harm can it do? I'm in enough trouble as it is.
That's right. But if any listeners think we've missed any biscuits, it would be good to find out, if we did, or if somebody has a suggestion, and maybe telling us which they think is the best motoring biscuit. We may well do a voting type thing.
Well, here's a thought. We could do a double thing. Yeah. What's the best car a biscuit combination? How does it match up? Does the car maybe get 70% and the biscuit 90%? Is there a correlation between the quality of the car and the quality of the biscuit?
Well, you see, personally, David, I rather like shortbread, and I think it's a very good dunking biscuit. And if you called it a short, then that's a bit like one of those Bob to Land Rovers, isn't it? So, because people call them short. So I've sort of invented a biscuit name for one that doesn't exist, I suppose, really. But I don't know. I've maybe taken that too far, but if I was given a choice, I'd go for a short bread.
Well, I've got a friend called Duncan McVitie.
Have you really?
Yeah, he's better now. He was suffering from digestive problems for a little while.
Did he?
He's just got that one, folks. He's just got it. I can't even claim credit for that one.
No, that's a shame.
And I think on that somewhat soggy note, we'll take another break.
Okay.
This is Bangers and Classics, presented by James Van Dam Ruppert and David Van Driver Malloy. Thanks for sticking around. Move on now to a regular part of the podcast. And this week's Banger or Classic is the Honda CRX. It's the hatchback version from 83 to 91. And the big question, of course, is the burning question. Is it a banger or is it a classic? Mr. Ruppert, your take.
Well, is it a hot hatch or is it a coupe? I think is because the thing I like about it is that actually it wasn't I wouldn't call it a hot hatch. I would sort of almost say it's a coupe-like, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
certainly the later version, and I rather like that. I rather think it's a pretty little car. It sort of is. Well, yeah, I think there isn't too much doubt about it. It has a very nice engine. They were very well built, and again, it's almost completely extinct car. I don't know. You usually you go out with your team and count them, but I'm not quite sure how many are left. But they probably aren't that many. But it was. I always remember. I mean, it's quite a sort of plain inside and so forth, and in some ways not hugely exciting, and unless somebody sort of made it go a lot faster and put wings on it and things. But in its pure form, I think it was an extremely nice little car, which you could pick up. They weren't especially cheap at the time, and they seem to hold their value extremely well as well. As I reminisce looking at in the early 90s when I did see a few for some car articles that I did. Yeah, there were still, even 80s versions, were like 5,500 at a Honda dealer. But yeah, personally, I think they're, nice, cute little things, very underrated and overlooked by people. And in some ways that made them better.
Yeah, I think so. Start first with the business of how many there are left. If you go on to how many left, the website, you can't really tell immediately because obviously the later car was also called the CRX.
Yeah.
I see you the hatchback 83 to 91 and I don't know what they called it. I mean, I suppose you'd call it a coupe, but it was a strange looking car. The 90s CRX that came along, and obviously the figures for those are aggregated.
Yeah.
You can get some indication by date of registration on it. Of course, there could be cars imported from Japan, etc. That basically mess around with the figures. They give you an inaccurate picture. So you couldn't really tell. I mean, I'd be surprised if there was more than about 30 or 40 on the road.
Yeah.
Of the hatchback ones right now. And that is a real shame. That's definitely a danger mobile.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it came out 83, I believe, the first series version. Slightly more angular than the second series. And in some parts of the world, it had a 1.3 litre engine, which to give a car that looked as good as that at 1.3 was a bit strange, but others have done it as well. US service personnel in Europe loved it, and they bought a lot of them, and they called them the Pocket Rocket. But it came along, you got the initial version, which ran to about 87. A restyled version came out in 1987, which was a smoother shape, a prettier shape, a more aerodynamic shape, and had some suspension changes. But the big changes, really, of the engine. I think there were two units you could get here. One was a normal injected 1.6 litre, and that was 128 horsepower. Now, I think late versions of the first series had that as well. But what came along later was the real Pocket Rocket, the real fizzer, was the Vtec engine. And it was a 1.6 litre engine which produced 158 brake horsepower without forced induction. Normally an aspirated engine, giving that amount of power over 30 years ago was quite remarkable. And giving it reliably, which revved to over 8,000 RPM quite happily. And apparently you had to rev it quite high to get the best out of it. So what I say is, they're quick, they're good looking, handled pretty well. And they were a great alternative, I think, to a hot hatchback. They were bespoke cars, they were coupes, and they looked great. No real room in the back. If you want a downside, you had nothing much in terms of room in the back. But if you could live with that, fantastic little car. I nearly bought one once. I went to look at one in the garage. This would be about 1992, and it was a Vtec model. And the garage tried to stiff me on the price. They advertised it at one price, then decided no, we were actually going to change the price. So I just told the salesman where he could stick his car. He did try to change his mind and say, "Oh well, but it was too late." But I just walked off. Couldn't be bothered with that sort of nonsense, and I bought a different car, which I kind of regret because I think I would have liked to have won one. Though, could I have fitted in it comfortably? That's a big question.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. The one I bought, I could fit in very comfortably, so perhaps it was all good. And the car I bought, I was happy with anyway. But CRX for me, definite classic. Actually, in fact, now I think, James, I saw a lovely one at a car show, 4 years ago or so. I have a photograph of it somewhere. We'll see if I can find the photograph and put it up on the Twitter page. But anyway, doesn't matter whether I can or not, it's a classic, and that's my vote.
Fair enough.
And you?
Yeah, no, it's classic. I remember saying so earlier on.
Oh, do you? Right.
Yeah, back when I said my name was David Malloy.
Not a lot of people know that.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, we shall move on now to another challenge. And this challenge, we've upped the budget here, James. We must be getting flush.
Yeah, goodness me.
Yeah, so we can spend up to £25,000 on an executive car.
Yeah.
The proviso, it cannot be German, it cannot be a Lexus, and it would have to be the sort of car you'd be happy to own and drive, or drive and own, whichever way you want to put it around. So, what did you come up with there? I struggled.
You struggled. Well, I don't know. I'm in the process, David, of rationalising my fleet, and I want a 3-car fleet, David, and I've got the small car sorted out. I need a supercar, and I need something in the middle. I need a saloon to get me around in the style to which I'm accustomed. And I went to America, and what I found was a 1986 Maserati Quatraporte V8 sedan with 31,000 miles. It's $17,500. It does work. You see some quite furiously expensive ones. Certainly the '60s ones are an awful lot of money. They're rather more than $25,000. But this has been adjusted. Although the price is in dollars, it's also pounds, 17,500. It's in a dry state. It's running. All the pictures show it as a current car, so it's being used. It's somebody cutting down their collection, and they reckon it would. They reckon exported to you for $1,500. So they reckon in a UK porting within 4 weeks. So if I can wait 4 weeks, I can have it in 4 weeks' time. I think if I was a younger man, I'd go and buy this, but it is a magnificent thing. It'll probably break down at some point, obviously, but the interior would be a wonderful place to sit. It is just although it's an 80s car, it's an extremely 70s interior with a pod dashboard, which is slightly reminiscent of a Rover SD1 in a way. But it just does look magnificent. I will send you a link later. But I would buy this in an absolute heartbeat. I really would. It's just lovely. And there's a nice picture actually of golf clubs in the boot. So as well as probably getting a body in the back, you can get some golf clubs as well. And it's a proper mafia car, this, but it's a lovely looking thing. And I would have my Di Tommaso Mini. I'd have this in the middle, my everyday car, and my supercar I think would have to be a Pantera, and that I would think is all the cars you would ever need. So this would be the one in the middle. So that's why I'd buy this. But I really quite genuinely would buy this, and I don't think it's furiously expensive for what it is. Compare it.
Right.
There's some in Italy, and they're all priced on application. So although I've been to Italy to buy cars before, I don't think I'd go there. I hate POAs on adverts. Just tell me what the price is, and we'll start from there. But yeah, £17,500. I think that's pretty reasonable for a rust-free huge Maserati. So
Yeah.
I've sorted myself out. So I'm very surprised, David, that you haven't with your limitless budget. I know you've got very strange bodywork, and it's whether you can fit into your car. But what did you come up with?
Well, let's just go back to your car first of all.
Really?
Yeah, well, I mean, Quatraporte, we've spoken about this before.
Yeah.
Mundane names in Italian sound great.
Yeah.
All it means is 4-door.
Yeah.
And what it really should say is 4-door with space for a set of golf bats in the boot.
Yeah, golf bats.
Don't call them golf clubs, golf bats. that upsets the purists if it's got to be done. Other thing I noticed from your dream garage there, and this will come as a surprise to some people, I think, who know you.
Yeah.
They're all Italian cars. None of them are German.
No, they're not, are they? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got them. Yeah, it's probably an age thing, David. I've probably had so many German cars. So I just think, let's just make them all Italian now. So
you've just come to the side of the light. That's all.
I really think so.
That's all. Yeah. Well, unsurprisingly, I went for a French car. I did think about an Italian car too.
Yeah.
And my first choice would have been a Renault 25 Turbo, a Phase 1 Renault 25 Turbo in black. Could I find one? No. Couldn't find one. It turns out there were some of these are spectacularly cheap in France. You can pick up one for a couple of €1,000.
Yeah.
But obviously you got to watch with that because you don't know how much work's required, etc. No. But I wanted the good one. I wanted the black one. I wanted the phase one. Yeah. I couldn't find one. So then I thought, okay, I'll go Italian. And I thought an Alpha 6. So obviously going back to Kenny again in this contest.
Yes.
This photo contest. And the winner of that was an Alpha 6. I thought, well, Alpha 6 Busso engine. Oh, that sounds very nice. I'll have one of those. No, I won't because I couldn't find one either. So then I thought, okay, well, a long time I've had one. I know what to expect, but I want a manual one this time. And I couldn't find one of the right specification. Yeah, there was plenty for sale. I wanted one in a certain colour. Had to be manual. Had to be really good condition. And I couldn't find one. Not to say there isn't one, just not one I could find.
No, that's
I'm sure there are plenty of nice ones still out there in the right colour, but they're probably not for sale at the moment.
No.
So I had to put my thinking cap on. And I thought, well, I want to go French or Italian here. And it came to me. I went for a Renault Safran V6 biturbo Baccarat.
Goodness me.
Yes, sir, and yes, sir, it can boogie. It's from 1996. It's for sale in France. It's done about, just 121,000 miles from new. Looks in very good condition. It's got, obviously, a V6 biturbo engine with about 260 horsepower, so that's good enough for me. That'll motor along quite nicely. I'll overtake when I want it to. And, yeah, it's blue, 5 doors. It's had 5 owners over the years, but that's not bad in more than a quarter of a century. And, yeah, it ticks all the boxes, really. I say I'd rather have a 25, but that's what I found for €15,000.
Yeah.
It's obviously in France. It's going to be a left-hand drive, but I don't really care about that. And obviously import duties, etc., are not going to come to anything like £10,000. Well, we want £10,000, so €15,000 will be what, 13,000 and change. Yeah. So yeah, I've got a bit of leg room there, even after pay for the fees and putting an MOT on it to do whatever I want to tart up whatever way I want to do. And yeah, so that's what I went for. I think it's an interesting car. I think it's a reasonably bland shape though. The Safran is the only thing.
Yeah,
it's quite a bland shape, but it actually hasn't dated too badly.
Maybe I would agree with you there. Yeah,
it looks. I'm looking at the picture of it just now, and it looks actually quite nice. It's not a shape that's going to get your heart racing, but equally you're not going to get a bucket and retch into it if you see it. It's quite nicely done. It's quite cleverly done. It's timeless, I would say, ageless. So yeah, that's what I'm going for. And obviously, Mr. Corrugated, another friend of the podcast. Well, I'm sure we're delighted that we've gone for at least one French car this week. And there you have it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
I think that's a splendid pair we have there, David. And we've saved some money as well, so we can put that towards whatever we try and buy next week.
Well, probably some popcorn from that lady that sells it down your way.
Yeah, we could do.
Yeah, well, yes, apparently it's very good popcorn.
Oh, it is. Yeah, we got some for Christmas and handed them out as presents. So there you go. We're very, very lucky people who.
I meant to order some for my wife and I forgot.
Did you really?
Yeah, I was just doing the pod a couple of weeks ago. I thought, blimey, popcorn! I forgot to get her.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll forgive me. She's probably forgotten actually. Well, she knows how unreliable I am. I'm sort of 70s British Leyland stands of reliability. Yeah, afraid so. But anyway, before I break down again, I think we'll call it a day for this week, and I'll simply say thank you for listening. Hope you're around next time, and I'll hand you over to Mr. Ruppert for his usual parting salutation.
Well, I don't know. I'm off to America to get a Maserati 4-door, and I'm sure that Anne Margaret would be happy to join me in that quest to get that car and bring it back. So that's what I'm doing.
You're getting some golf bats when you're at it?
I'll get some golf bats for you, David. Don't worry.
Excellent. Well done. And on that note, say cheerio.
Yeah, bye-bye, everybody.